This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Corenna and Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different Q's.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Corenna Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 with Maine Republican gubernatorial candidate Garrett Mason.
Speaking of taxes, it seems like every tax is going up. Property tax, income tax. How are you going to be able to lower everybody's taxes?
Well, I go back to one of the things I said earlier is that we have done it before. We did it with Democrats. That first income tax cut that we did in 2011 is we removed 70,000 low-income tax filers off the tax rolls completely. We were able to reduce the top marginal tax rate in that first budget. We did it again in 2015. And every single time we reduced taxes, we did it with the help of Democrats. They came on board because we articulated that it was the right thing to do for Maine families. I will do that again. One thing I will not promise that a lot of other men in the race for the Republican nomination have is that I will eliminate the income tax. I do not believe that you can eliminate the income tax in 4 years. I think that is a very lofty goal. I think you can get it low. I think you can bring it down, but you just can't bring it down that quick unless you had like some sort of super Republican majority that was willing to make some drastic, immediate changes. But we can lower it. And so much of that is in the fraud and the waste and the abuse that we just talked about through DHHS. But it's also fundamental disagreements between what we think should be funded as Republicans and what Democrats think that should be funded. For example, one of the categories that we cover under Maine Care right now is a childless adult. And what does that mean? Well, it's an adult who is childless. And I don't think just because that is your station in life at that moment that you should qualify for government-funded healthcare. I would want to eliminate that. I want to make sure that the services that we're giving out are correct. We need to investigate that. And I think pretty quickly we can get to the bottom of a lot of what's going on. I also think that the pet projects that have been funded in this state over the past 8 years through no bid contracts, I heard from a state employee not too long ago when it was mentioned, hey, maybe we should bid out for this project, multi-million-dollar project. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, that's not an excuse. You don't get to say, I don't want to bid out for a project. I couldn't believe what I heard when I heard it. It was like, of course you're going to bid out for a project. I mean, come on. So there's a lot of functions in state government that also need to be addressed to reduce the amount of expenditures in the state. But there's also other things that we can do to bring business in. We need to be able to grow the economy here in Maine. And I think for far too long, we've been playing Little League. And we have tremendous opportunity. The first thing that we have, our position on the planet. We are closer to Africa, closer to Europe, closer to Greenland than any other state in the country. Half of our state extends into Canada on the 49th parallel. We have a tremendous God-given area on the planet that makes us important for infrastructure. We have the largest deep water seaport in Eastport that is completely underutilized. During the pandemic, there was a lot of cruise ships that didn't have any place to go, and they parked themselves in Eastport. And it was very easy. There was plenty of space for them. And it's a harbor that doesn't need to be dredged. It's naturally stone bottomed. What we have there is incredible in and of itself. We have Portland. We have other places along the state that we can bring in a lot of trade. I live in Lisbon, right outside of Brunswick, and the Brunswick Naval Air Station is incredible. One of the things I want to research, and Owen McCarthy, to his great credit, has talked about this as well. We can bring in low-cost carriers from Europe to increase our tourism. Airlines like Norwegian Air, EasyJet, that fly into secondary airports like that. Let's work with Senator Collins to get a federal waiver to be able to fly international flights into Brunswick. Bring in more people during the summer. And when Owen started talking about that, I was like, yes, I talked about that in 2018. That's awesome. Let's do that. We have opportunity to grow our economy. And I think we've been playing safe for too long. And that's something that I won't do.
It seems like to me that we're recruiting older people since we're the oldest state in the nation.
Yeah.
And younger people are just not coming here.
Right.
How do we change that? Because obviously it's whatever we're doing now is not working.
And I think that's another reason that I would make a great candidate for governor for Republicans is because we need to have somebody that has stake in the game. I'm 40 years old. If I'm lucky enough to serve for governor for 8 years, I'll be 49 when I get out. And I'm not going anywhere. I'll still have a kid in middle school. We need somebody who understands what people are going through right now. And that means it's the affordability agenda. It's too expensive to live here. It's too expensive right now. Everything is expensive, from your housing to your groceries to your electricity. Every place you turn, you're getting taxed. You buy a car, excise tax is a fortune for most people. We have to do something to entice people my age to stay here. You used to be able to get a home. You know all about this. In my town, 5 years ago in Lisbon, the median price of a home was $225,000. It is now over $450,000. That's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. And it's not because we had a brand new development come in. It's not because all of these other things. It's because of the circumstances of our state. It's because of what we have done on the state level. And it's because we invited a people up here during the pandemic that bought up a lot of housing and took it off the market for other people. So I'm a firm believer that we have to nominate somebody who has stake in the game long after they're done being governor.
Speaking of energy, what is your energy plan?
Are you guys ready to do a third episode? Because this is a long one.
We're ready.
All right. Energy in Maine, I believe we have reached crisis level. We pay some of the highest electricity costs in the entire country. And it's because we've done it to ourselves. And it started 30 years ago when we started the industrial wind project here in Maine. And we continued that in the Mills administration with industrial solar. We stopped any kind of importation from Canada on hydropower, cheap hydropower. We've had pain inflicted on us by governors of other states who won't let us do what we need to do to get cheaper power here. Everything we have done in Maine has been the wrong decision. I'll start with natural gas. Right now, if you look on the ISO New England website, you're going to see that most of our energy in this state comes from natural gas. Natural gas is cheap. It's abundant. The United States is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. One of the first things I will do as governor is I will initiate a lawsuit in the Supreme Court against New York and Massachusetts because I believe they have violated the Commerce Clause by not allowing pipeline expansion into the ISO New England grid. I think we would win that case and we would be able to move that pipeline project forward. That is one thing that would be a short-term solution to some of our problems. The other thing that I would do, and this is a place that President Biden and President Trump agree on, is that the Jones Act has been very destructive to places like Maine. And people don't know what that is, but it requires that any ship that goes from American port to American port needs to be built, crewed, and flagged by Americans. That all sounds great. It costs $700 million to build a Jones Act compliant tanker for liquid natural gas. $700 million when you can buy the same tanker from Korea for $200 million. Right now, we are buying LNG from countries that hate us. It's all because we want to say that we need to do what I just said. I would ask President Trump to continue his waiver of the Jones Act, because if he did that, we could buy natural gas from the Gulf of America and ship it up into the ISO New England grid in Massachusetts. That's 27 tankers every winter that we go through. 27 tankers. So that would be immediate relief for Maine people. In the long term, we have to stop being afraid of nuclear power. I understand, Maine Yankee. I understand. But that was based on unfounded, bad technology in other countries. You are not going to get Chernobyl at Maine Yankee. You're not going to get 3 Mile Island at Maine Yankee. And we shut that place down. The Chancellor of Germany just came out a few months ago and said they made a huge mistake getting rid of their nuclear energy in Germany to switch to wind. It didn't work. It drove up their electric rates. And we have done virtually the exact same thing. But nuclear is not an immediate solution. People need relief right now. And nuclear is something we need to work to over the next 10 to 15 years. So as governor, I would absolutely start paving the way for something like that because it is the clear answer. The other thing that we need to do, there was a study that was done in the legislature in 2015 when I was there, and it inventoried all of the stranded hydropower in Maine that could be accessed. There's 56 megawatts of stranded power in Maine that could get to the grid that is hydro. I'm sure that's changed now. I mean, it's a rather old study, but it just showed that there's things out there that we can do that don't rip out fields, that don't blow the tops off mountains, all for very expensive energy that makes people feel good that they can heat their pool with green energy. There's so many things that we can do that are the right decisions, that are easy, but we've made all the wrong ones. And I think the most perverse one is solar. I don't have any issue with solar. I don't, especially if you want to live off grid or you want to stabilize your energy bill. You can stabilize it forever, essentially, if you have solar with battery backup. That's fine. But what I have a problem with is large-scale industrial solar because we are incentivizing farmers to not grow food, to put expensive power with solar panels from China on perfectly arable farmland. And that really, really bothers me. You want to know why your grocery bills are going up? because we're not growing food. We're putting up solar panels. You want to know why your energy bills are going up? Because we're subsidizing farmers to put solar panels on their fields. So that's a huge issue for me. And it solves all the other problems. It solves the affordability problem. And when you're building a house, you need energy to build a house. Costs go up if you're paying more energy. If you're not growing food, well, that raises your price. Here's another story. When I was in the legislature, I remember Governor LePage was working towards getting, it was either Boeing or Airbus to come in. And we were a finalist. We were competing against South Carolina. And I remember thinking while those conversations were going on, it was like, oh man, we're going to lose because Maine's not right to work. And South Carolina is. They didn't come to Maine, but it wasn't because of that. It was because of energy. And it solves so many of our problems if we can fix that. And it's all been self-induced. And I think, I don't want to say that it's an easy problem to solve, but it's a common sense one to solve.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Corenna Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Maine Republican gubernatorial candidate, Garrett Mason. Well, you have to think about how many other businesses did not come to Maine because of energy.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. This is a company, I'll leave the name out of it, but they produce pressed fiber for building materials. Maine has the literally perfect mix of soft and hard lumber to produce cross-laminated timber. We don't produce it here, though, because of energy costs. It's produced in Montana. It's produced in Alabama. It's produced in the Czech Republic. When we have a perfect solution for the housing crisis right in our North Maine woods, but because of energy, we can't produce the material here. We have an incredible lab at the University of Maine that does all of this research. It's amazing, but energy is halting us from so much of this.
So is that part of your housing crisis plan?
Yeah, it is 100%. One of the other things we've done with housing, I remember they were giving out grants for new subdivisions for affordable housing. And one of the things that was required of it was that you had to run everything off a heat pump. Well, that's fine if you want to have an affordable house. But if your energy bill is $700 a month, it's not that affordable. So we have to do more because we have put in hundreds of thousands of heat pumps in this state, which are great. Don't get me wrong. We put them in our own builds, different projects we've done. But when you're selling fixed income people a lie, giving them something free and then jacking up their electric bill, that's not fair. And our government should be required to do the lowest cost at all costs.
So speaking of energy, I noticed you're driving a Ford Lightning. I'm driving a Ford Lightning.
Yeah.
And I've been asking this question. I can't get the answer. A few years ago, Biden gave the state of Maine $14 million to put in charging stations. And I just haven't seen that many north of Augusta. I don't know if that got done or not. And if it does get done, we need to put at least 60 kilowatts or more. It's a waste of money to do the 7.2.
Yeah.
Because when there's two people on there, you're talking 3 kilowatts. You'd be there for a day or two.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So what are you hearing out there on the $14 million from federal government?
So there was a giant chunk of money put into the bipartisan infrastructure bill that President Biden signed, and every state had to put forward a charging plan for electric cars. One of the things that was snuck into that was a requirement that in order to install these, you basically had to have union apprenticeships involved. And that simply just does not exist here. It might exist in other states, but at the time that bill was passed, they didn't even have the training program to install these. So it was one of those things that you have all this money set aside, you put a provision in there where you're specifically pointing at one group of industry to perform for you, instead of just doing may the best bid win. So the reason that money hasn't been spent is because there's nobody to put in the chargers under the way that the law is built. So you're absolutely right. And the other thing about that entire bill and the way they structured the EV component of that federally is they explicitly excluded Tesla.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? When you have Tesla going out there and pioneering electric cars. Now, I love my Ford Lightning. It's a regular truck and it's a lot of fun to drive. It's really fast. I like mine, but it is clear that Tesla is the innovator in this space. And if you're really going to do something for people, then wouldn't you make sure that anybody who is producing good EV technology could compete to install something like that if that's a priority of yours? But it's absolutely incredible to me that you would put those kind of provisions on that bill when you knew it couldn't be fulfilled. You knew. So I don't know where that money currently is right now, but I know the reason it's not being deployed. It's because you don't have the people to install them because it doesn't meet the requirements.
What makes you wonder, is it actually sitting somewhere or has it been spent?
I don't know. That's a very good question, but that money is somewhere. But I know that there's not any new charging stations anywhere. That's for sure.
So what's your plan on education in Maine?
Education in Maine, we're so lucky. And the reason for that is because our Constitution and the laws of our state dictate that education is run locally. And one of the great lies that's been perpetrated across the state is that you have to do whatever the state tells you to do. You don't. School boards have tremendous authority over what can and cannot be taught, what can and cannot be expended for, right down to the curricula that they implement at the town level. There's a certain law firm in the state that has gone around and represents most of the school boards and threatened them within an inch of their life that you have to do essentially everything that the superintendent says, and whatever the state tells you to do, you have to do. I think that lie is being broken now. There's some great organizations like the Maine Education Institute, led by former Rep. Heidi Sampson, that are teaching these school boards that they don't have to interpret Title IX the way that the Democrats and Janet Mills do. And you can interpret that to say that girls play in girls' sports and boys play in boys' sports. That you can have an obscenity rule in your library so that you're not putting things on the shelves that kids shouldn't have access to. People always say when I talk about that, it's like, oh, you're into book banning. Well, I'm not running a Barnes & Noble. I'm running a school. So I don't want everything on the shelf. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. But so much of what needs to be done, we already can do through local school boards. So one of the things I want to do, we talk about things we want to cut. Something that I want to offer is if I'm governor, we're going to have an office of the governor's school board liaison. We're going to teach these school boards how they can take control back themselves and not have to rely on the state to tell them what to do. We're obviously going to have a fantastic commissioner. I have a bunch of people in mind that I already want to offer that position to. And you can clean up the Department of Education relatively quickly, especially some of the filth that's on the DOE website that they're encouraging teachers to implement. And there's positions and offices in the department that we could get rid of relatively quickly. So much of what has to happen is on the local level. I think we got 2 years with President Trump and his commitment to end the Department of Education at the federal level. You combine that with a governor who understands how Maine law is structured, and you're going to have the best education in the world right here in Maine, because the best education in the world is sitting with the people in the communities, with their children, not some government bureaucrat in Augusta or Washington, D.C. With me, you're going to have a governor that understands that and understands that just signing a bunch of executive orders is not the way to get things done. You have to fundamentally change how education flows in the state of Maine, and you also have to remind people of their power. You have to remind these school boards that you don't have to do what this person and that person says. You can do what you want and what's in the best interest of your children. And my office will make sure that school boards know that they have options. Also, on top of that, you have to make sure that you're preparing kids for the jobs of the future. So much of that is the blue collar work that's being done by everyday Mainers. I was at a hospitality forum last month. And one of the things that I don't think people realize is that you can have a 6-figure job in hospitality. And right now, we're not training or encouraging people to get into that industry when tourism is our biggest driver in this state. And you can have a great life and a great career doing that. AI can do a lot of things, but it cannot replace a human touch. And Hospitality Maine is all about that. We need to make sure we're taking that industry, not only with the university system and the community college system, but with CTE. All three of those places need to be on the front lines of training hospitality and tourism. That goes right along with blue collar trades as well. All three need to be involved in making sure that we're encouraging kids that you can have a great job being a plumber. You can have a great job being an auto body mechanic or running heavy equipment. There's a great heavy equipment school at Central Maine Community College. We have so much to offer with blue collar trades. We just have to continue to invest in them. We talked about Brian. Brian's a really good friend of mine from the legislature. He taught culinary arts in Ellsworth school system for years. What a wonderful trade that you can make a lot of money. We have more James Beard Award winners in this state than most places will ever see. Every place you turn, there's an award-winning restaurant. So that is the future of education. And one of the things I want to make sure that we're preparing the public education system for is the mobility of people. A lot of people think there's some woke garbage being taught in school. That's why we're pulling kids out. That's not the whole reason. The other reason that kids are being homeschooled and going to alternative education like CTEs and all of this is because their families are more mobile. People work from home. People have jobs in other places and they find that, well, I can just take my kids with me and we can maybe travel a little bit more, or we can do some things that school would tie us down for. So when you look at CTE in the trades, that's an alternative method of education. That's not an 8-to-3 situation. Like, it can be a lot more flexible. We have to have a governor who understands that the world is moving, and training people for the future in various methods is really, really important.
You are listening to Q Point Podcast. I'm Corenna Quirk, co-hosting with my husband, David Quirk, and we are having a conversation with Maine Republican gubernatorial candidate, Garrett Mason. So for people that are listening and may not know, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah. We talked a little bit about how I got into politics, but my family has been in Lisbon for over 200 years on both sides. It's funny, you go into Lisbon, and if you're not running into a Crafts, you're running into a Mason, or you're running into a Garnett. I'm related to all of them. So I'm very lucky to come from where I come from. And I'm not sure that story is much different than most Mainers. We tend to stick to where we're from. But I love my community. I love my town. We were talking about my mom off air. I was very lucky. I tell people this, it's just funny. When I was in the legislature, I was very young, but I was fully supervised the entire time that I was there. I got to serve with both my mom and my dad. They both represented the House in Lisbon. So we come from a very civically minded family. We love where we're from. We've always tried to make it better. I live in the house that I grew up in, bought the house from my dad, and I have a wife. Her name's Rebecca. She's from California, from outside of San Francisco, and we don't hold that against her. She's one of the last remaining conservatives in San Francisco, so you had to airlift her out. We have a little girl. Her name's Piper. She's 6 years old. She's just finishing up kindergarten. And we own a couple of businesses. I own my public affairs company, which is Dirigo Public Affairs. I run with my business partner, Keith Herrick, who's been involved in many campaigns over the years. And then my wife has a company called the Maine Home Collective, and we build small, under 1,000 square foot homes. I like to tell everybody about my wife. She makes everything beautiful, everything. She does a spectacular job building really nice houses for people. We're just a regular old Maine family. My dad's still in the legislature. After my mom passed away, he felt it was his calling to continue my mother's service, and here he is 9 years later, and now he's going to run for my old Senate seat. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, I'm very proud of my family, and my wife, my daughter, my dad. We all live right next door to each other.
You used to be very involved in the Moxie Parade. Is that still?
Yeah, I wish I could still be involved, but my mom was very, very involved in the Moxie Festival. She used to make all the trains run on time at that festival.
I remember.
Oh, yeah. It's the longest parade in the state. So it took a lot of planning. After she passed away, they actually named the parade after her. It's always fun to go. And somebody in our family is always running for some local or state office. So we always make sure that we're there.
So there's quite a bit of candidates running for governor. What's the biggest difference between you and the rest of the candidates?
My pitch is simple. I think that anybody in the Republican field would make a great governor. I think everybody has something to offer. I look at all these people that some have built amazing businesses, some have employed thousands of people. But my pitch is very simple. I don't think that we have any time for on-the-job training. This is not 2010. It's very different. We have to have somebody who's already been there, seen where the bodies are buried, knows how to dig them up. And I'm the only one in the field that can offer that. That's not to say that I haven't had external experience. We're talking about 136,000 small businesses in the state of Maine. I got 2 of them. And I know what it's like to sign the front and back of a paycheck. I know what it's like to have to pay your employees before you pay yourself. I know what it's like to live under the regulations that people face every single day. And just because I haven't run a company listed on the New York Stock Exchange doesn't mean that I'm not facing the same exact things that other people have. My pitch to people is we need experience in both the private sector and in government. I think every time in political history, you need a different type of leader. And I think this time we need somebody with experience on the inside and out. And that's my pitch to people. And I think that's what makes me different.
For people that may want to get involved in your campaign, we know that the primary is coming very soon, but still, if there's someone that wants to get involved, help out, donate, what's the best way?
MasonforMaine.com. Head right on over there. You can fill out a contact form. And outside of that, I'm not even sure it's possible for people to miss us on the highway right now. We've been back and forth to Aroostook. We've been back and forth to Bangor twice this week. We're everywhere. So if you see us flying by in a white Ford Lightning, it's probably us.
Maine Republican gubernatorial candidate, Garrett Mason. Thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.